When the lights went out, the evening had started like any other. Lakshmi Pichai sat quietly on the old wooden chair in the living room. The monsoon rain outside had softened into a steady drizzle, and the house was filled with the gentle sound of drops falling against the tiled roof. Sundar had just returned from a long day, his eyes tired yet still warm, carrying that same calm presence his mother always admired. Suddenly, without warning, the lights went out. The entire house fell into silence except for the rain. In the darkness, Lakshmi gasped softly. For a moment, she felt as if her world had stopped. She had grown weaker in recent months, and even a small change unsettled her. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the edge of the chair. Sundar noticed instantly. He did not rush, did not panic. Instead, he moved close to her, placing his hand gently over hers. His voice was low and steady. "Amma, I am here. Do not worry." In the dim glow of the outside streetlight slipping through the window, his face was calm, his eyes filled with quiet strength. The silence stretched longer than usual. The neighborhood, too, had lost power, and the once lively sound of televisions and fans was replaced by the raw hum of rain and distant thunder. Lakshmi's heart pounded faster, but Sundar's touch grounded her. She felt her son's presence like a shield against the growing darkness. He guided her to sit back comfortably, keeping one hand on hers and the other on her shoulder. He could feel the weight of her fear, and yet he spoke softly, reminding her of their old home in Madurai, where power cuts had been common. "Do you remember, Amma, how we used to light small lamps when the lights went out? You always said darkness makes the flame look brighter." Lakshmi's lips curved into a faint smile. She remembered those nights, simple times when life was hard but filled with warmth. Sundar's words pulled her back into that memory, easing the fear in her chest. Outside, children began calling out, laughing at the sudden blackout while neighbors lit candles. Inside their home, Sundar lit a small oil lamp. The golden flame filled the room with a soft glow, washing their faces in warmth. Lakshmi looked at him, her son who had grown from a shy boy into a leader admired around the world. Yet in that moment he was simply her son, present, gentle, and steady. But as the minutes passed, a new tension began to rise. The power outage lasted longer than expected, and the storm outside grew heavier. The faint smile on Lakshmi's face began to fade again. She whispered almost to herself, "What if the night stays dark? What if we are left like this for hours?" Her voice carried not only the worry of the blackout, but also the deeper weight of her health struggles, her quiet fear of losing control. Sundar leaned closer, holding her hand more firmly. "Amma, darkness cannot last forever. Light will always return. Until then, we will sit together." His words were simple, but they carried truth. They were not only about the night, but also about life, their struggles, their moments of pain, their silent battles. Lakshmi felt her eyes moisten. She realized her son was not only speaking to comfort her, he was reminding himself too. Even leaders, even men admired by millions, carried quiet fears that they never spoke of. The room felt different now. The blackout had changed it from an ordinary evening into a moment that would stay with them forever. Sundar's quiet strength, his steady voice, and his gentle support made the darkness less frightening. Then, just as they settled into silence, a knock came at the door. It was unusual at that hour. Sundar rose slowly, cautious yet composed, leaving the lamp close to his mother. When he opened the door, he found two neighbors standing outside with worried expressions. "Sundar, we heard a loud noise near the transformer," one said. "We think something is wrong with the wires. The whole street may stay without power tonight." The words hung heavy in the air. Sundar nodded, thanking them, and returned inside. He did not tell his mother the full detail, not wanting to trouble her. Instead, he placed the lamp between them and smiled. "Amma, it seems the night wants us to spend more time together." Lakshmi studied his face, sensing the truth he had not spoken. But she did not ask. She simply leaned back, holding his hand tighter, drawing strength from his presence. As the night stretched on, the darkness outside deepened, but inside, the small flame of the lamp and the quiet bond between mother and son grew brighter. The blackout had become more than a simple power cut. It had become a silent test of patience, resilience, and love. And deep within, Lakshmi felt something change. She realized that sometimes it is in the darkest of nights that the brightest truths about life are revealed. Whispers in the dark, the silence of the blackout stretched further into the night. The little oil lamp flickered gently, casting long shadows on the walls. Lakshmi leaned back against the chair, her breathing slow but restless. Sundar remained close, his hand never leaving hers. For a moment it seemed peaceful, but deep inside both of them, thoughts they rarely spoke about began to rise. The darkness had a way of opening hidden doors. Lakshmi turned to her son and asked quietly, "Sundar, do you ever feel afraid? People look at you with respect, but do you ever feel small inside?" The question caught him off guard. He looked at her, his calm eyes softening in the glow. "Amma," he said slowly, "I feel afraid many times. I feel small even now. But you taught me something long ago, that fear is not weakness. It is only a reminder that we are human." Lakshmi's eyes glistened. She had always wondered what weight her son carried on his shoulders. And tonight, in the dark, he finally spoke of it. Outside, the storm grew stronger. The wind howled through the trees, and every now and then a branch snapped and fell. The sound echoed like cracks in the silence, making Lakshmi flinch. Sundar noticed her fear and placed his arm gently around her shoulder, pulling her closer. "You are safe, Amma. I will not let anything happen." Just as the words left his lips, another knock came at the door. This time louder, urgent. Sundar rose, cautious, the soft flame of the lamp trembling with the movement of air. When he opened the door, he found a young boy from the neighborhood drenched in rain, his face pale. "Uncle," the boy said breathlessly, "my grandmother is not well. The blackout has stopped her machine from working. We don't know what to do." The words struck like lightning. Sundar's heart raced. He knew the boy's grandmother, an old woman respected in the neighborhood, fragile and dependent on a small breathing machine that now lay powerless in the dark. He turned back toward his mother, who was watching him silently, her eyes filled with both worry and trust. She nodded gently, as if telling him without words, "Go help them." Sundar grabbed a flashlight from the corner of the room and followed the boy into the storm. The rain beat hard against his shoulders, soaking him within seconds. The streets were half flooded, and the faint glow of candles from different homes painted a picture of both fear and unity. When he reached the boy's house, he saw the grandmother lying weakly on the bed, her breaths shallow, her chest rising with effort. Her family stood helpless around her. Sundar quickly checked the machine, knowing it could not run without electricity. The sight filled him with urgency. For a brief moment, doubt clouded him. He was not a doctor, not a miracle worker, yet he knew he could not walk away. He thought fast, remembering a small backup battery he had once kept in his office bag. Running back through the rain, he entered his house, searching frantically while his mother watched him. "What is it, Sundar?" she asked, her voice trembling. "A neighbor needs this more than me," he answered. Holding up the small backup device, he returned to the boy's house, connected the machine, and watched as the grandmother's breathing began to steady. Relief washed over the family. Tears of gratitude filled their eyes as they whispered blessings. But in that moment, something shifted in Sundar. He realized that the blackout was not only a challenge, it was also a chance to serve. He had always carried titles, responsibilities, and respect in the outside world. But tonight he was simply a man trying to bring comfort in the dark. When he returned home, soaked to the bone, Lakshmi looked at him with quiet pride. Her eyes shone with the same warmth she had carried since his childhood. "You were always like this, Sundar," she whispered. "Even as a boy, you could not ignore someone in need." He smiled faintly, placing the lamp back in front of them. "Amma, you taught me that kindness is not a choice, it is a duty." Yet even as those words hung in the air, another sound reached them. From the far end of the street, a sudden cry echoed, sharp and desperate. It cut through the rain and silence, chilling both mother and son. Lakshmi gripped Sundar's hand. "Something else has happened," she said, her voice shaking. And in that moment, Sundar understood. The night was not done with them. The blackout was more than darkness. It was a test, and the true trials had only just begun. The cry in the storm, the cry from the far end of the street echoed again, louder, sharper, carried by the heavy wind. Sundar froze for a moment, listening closely. Lakshmi gripped his hand, her face tense. The storm had already turned the night into a battle, and now another voice of distress pulled at him. Amma? I must go, Sundar said gently. Lakshmi's lips trembled. She wanted to stop him, wanted to keep him safe beside her, but she saw the determination in his eyes, the same determination he had as a boy whenever someone was in need. She nodded slowly, whispering, Go, but be careful, Sundar. He wrapped a shawl around her shoulders before stepping out into the rain again. The streets were darker now, the small flames from neighbors' candles flickering weakly against the storm. He followed the sound, his flashlight cutting through the sheets of rain, until he reached a small, broken hut at the corner of the lane. Inside, he found a man lying on the floor, clutching his leg. Beside him, his young daughter cried helplessly. The roof had partly collapsed from the weight of the storm, and a heavy wooden beam had fallen across the man's leg, pinning him down. Please help, the girl sobbed, her eyes wide with fear. Sundar rushed forward, his heart pounding. He tried lifting the beam, but it was heavier than he expected, slick with rain and mud. The man groaned in pain, his voice weak. For a moment, Sundar felt powerless. He looked around, searching for help. Then, without hesitation, he called out into the storm, his voice strong and clear. I need hands here. Someone come quickly, his cry was answered. Two neighbors appeared, men who had been checking their own homes. Together, they pushed and lifted the beam while Sundar pulled the injured man free. The girl threw her arms around her father as tears mixed with the rain on her face. The man's leg was badly hurt, swollen and bleeding. Sundar tore part of his own shirt, wrapping it tightly around the wound to slow the bleeding. The neighbors carried the man to a safer corner of the hut, while Sundar comforted the girl, telling her, Your father is strong. He will be fine. We will not leave you alone. In that moment, Sundar realized something powerful. The blackout had turned strangers into a family. The storm had forced people to step out of their own worries and become each other's strength. When Sundar returned home, his clothes heavy with rain and mud, Lakshmi looked at him with tears in her eyes. You carry too much tonight, she whispered. Yet you still return to me with the same calm face. Sundar knelt beside her. Amma, I am only doing what you taught me. You used to say that kindness does not wait for light. Even in the dark, kindness must move forward. Lakshmi's eyes softened. She reached out, touching his face gently. My son, she said, her voice trembling. I used to wonder if I gave you enough in life. Tonight, I see that what I gave was small compared to what you have become. Sundar held her hand tighter, feeling the depth of her words. But before he could reply, the storm gave another roar. Thunder cracked above, and suddenly, the oil lamp flickered violently. Then, without warning, the lamp went out. The room fell into complete darkness. Lakshmi gasped, clutching his arm. Sundar, where is the light? He quickly reached for matches, trying to relight the lamp, but they were damp, refusing to spark. The silence between thunderclaps felt heavier now, pressing against them. In that darkness, Lakshmi's fears returned sharper than before. Her voice shook as she whispered, Sometimes, this is how I feel inside. As if my body is a lamp slowly losing its flame. The words cut deep into Sundar's heart. He pulled her close, whispering back, Amma, even if the lamp goes out, I will be your light. I will not let you sit in darkness alone. The moment was raw, heavy, and silent until, once again, a sound came from outside. But this time it was not a cry. It was footsteps, slow, approaching their door. Someone was coming through the storm. The knock at the door. The footsteps outside grew heavier, pressing through the storm. Sundar stood still, listening. Lakshmi tightened her grip on his hand, her body tense in the darkness. The blackout had already filled the night with fear and trials, and now the unknown stood right at their door. The knock came, slow, deliberate. Not hurried like the boy earlier, not desperate like a cry for help, but heavy and firm. Sundar rose, his flashlight in hand, and moved cautiously toward the door. He glanced back at his mother, giving her a small nod of reassurance. When he opened it, the light fell on a familiar figure, an elderly man, drenched in rain, his white hair plastered against his forehead. It was Mr. Raman, an old neighbor who rarely left his home. His eyes were tired and his voice cracked as he spoke. "Sundar," he said, almost in a whisper. "My wife. She has collapsed. I cannot carry her alone." The weight of the words struck Sundar instantly. Without hesitation, he handed the flashlight to his mother, whispering, "Keep this with you, Amma. I will return." Lakshmi's eyes filled with worry, but she nodded. "Go, my son. Help them." Sundar stepped into the storm once again, following Mr. Raman through the flooded street. When they reached the house, he found Mrs. Raman lying unconscious on the floor, her face pale. Her breaths were shallow, her hands cold. Panic filled the room as the old man trembled, not knowing what to do. Sundar knelt beside her, checking her pulse. It was faint but present. He knew she needed care quickly. But the blackout had shut down everything. The hospital machines, the phones, even the streetlights that guided people to safety. He looked around, searching for anything that could help. Then his eyes fell on a small box of old candles and matches. With steady hands, he lit one, placing it near her. The warm glow spread through the room, giving both light and courage. "She is breathing," Sundar said firmly. "We must keep her warm and watch her closely until the storm passes." He asked for blankets and covered her gently. Then, sitting beside her, he spoke softly to the old man. "Uncle, you are not alone. Tonight we will sit together." As the hours passed, Sundar remained with them, giving comfort with his calm presence. Finally, when Mrs. Raman's breathing grew stronger, relief washed over the room. The old man's eyes filled with tears. "I do not know how to thank you, Sundar. You have done more than I could ever ask." Sundar placed a hand on his shoulder. "You do not need to thank me. Tonight is not about me. It is about all of us standing together." When he returned home, the storm was quieter. The rain had softened, and the silence of the street felt different, less frightening, more united. Inside, he found Lakshmi waiting by the lamp, which she had managed to relight with steady patience. Her face brightened when she saw him. "Amma," he said softly, sitting beside her. "Tonight I understood something. The storm is teaching us what light cannot. It is showing us how much we need one another." Lakshmi looked at him with pride, her eyes glistening. "My son, you carry the strength of many, but your strength is not only in what you do, it is in how you make others believe they are not alone." Her words sank deep into Sundar's heart. But just as the peace settled, another voice rang out from outside, this time not a cry of pain, but a call of urgency. "Everyone, come quickly!" "The transformer is burning!" Sundar froze. The blackout had grown more dangerous. The storm was no longer just about darkness, it was about survival. Fire in the storm, the shout outside made Sundar rise at once. He rushed to the door and saw the distant glow of flames cutting through the heavy rain. The transformer at the end of the street was crackling, sparks flying into the night sky like angry stars. People were gathering, their faces lit with fear and confusion. Lakshmi stood slowly from her chair, her hands trembling. "Sundar," she whispered, her voice filled with both fear and pleading, "do not go near the fire. It is dangerous." He turned back to her, his eyes soft but steady. "Amma, I must go. If the fire spreads, it can harm the whole neighborhood. Please trust me." Her lips trembled, but she nodded, her heart heavy. She knew she could not stop him, yet every part of her wanted to keep him safe by her side. Sundar ran through the rain toward the transformer. The closer he got, the more intense the heat felt, even with the storm trying to drown it. Neighbors shouted, some pulling back in fear, others trying to throw buckets of water, though it did little against the raging sparks. "Everyone stay back," Sundar called out, his voice firm. "The wires are dangerous. Do not go near." A small group of men gathered, looking to him for direction. The fear in their eyes showed they did not know what to do next. Sundar took a deep breath, scanning the scene. He knew that if the fire reached the nearby wires, the entire row of houses could be in danger. "Bring sand, bring soil, anything to smother it," he said quickly. Without hesitation, people scattered, returning with sacks of soil, wet cloths, and whatever they could carry. Sundar led them, covering the sparks carefully, making sure no one touched the live wires. The fire hissed and spat, but slowly, under the force of rain and their efforts, it began to die down. Finally, the flames weakened into smoke. The neighbors let out a collective sigh of relief, some clapping, others whispering prayers. Sundar's chest heaved with exhaustion, his clothes soaked, his hands blackened with soot. Then a voice rose from the crowd, an older woman with folded hands. "God bless you, Sundar. Tonight you have saved not only the transformer, but all of us." He gave a small, tired smile, shaking his head. "No, it was not me. It was all of us together." But even as relief spread, Sundar's heart grew heavy. He turned his eyes back toward his home, worried for his mother. He had left her in the dim glow of the small lamp, fragile and waiting in the silence of the storm. He hurried back, pushing through the wet streets. When he stepped inside, Lakshmi looked at him with eyes that told an entire story: fear, pride, relief, and unspoken love. "Amma," he said softly, kneeling before her. "The fire is out. Everyone is safe." Tears filled her eyes. She placed her hand on his head, whispering, "You are my son, but tonight you are also the son of this street. Your shoulders carry more than I ever imagined." He held her hand gently, feeling the warmth of her touch. "Amma, I only do what you have always done, giving, protecting, standing strong." She smiled faintly, though her body trembled with weakness. "My son," she whispered, "you speak of strength. But sometimes I wonder how much more your heart can carry." Before Sundar could answer, the silence was broken again, this time by a sudden rumble from the distance. It was not thunder. It was the sound of something collapsing. Neighbors shouted once more. "A tree has fallen across the road." Another voice added, "Someone is trapped under it." Sundar's body tensed. His eyes moved from the door to his mother. Her hand tightened around his. "Sundar," she said, her voice heavy with love and fear. "You cannot fight every storm alone, but I know you will try." He gave her a small, sorrowful smile, brushing her hand gently. "Amma, I must, because if I do not, someone will sit in darkness alone." And with that he rose once more, stepping into the storm that refused to rest. Under the fallen tree, the storm had not calmed. The rain was softer now, but the wind carried a strange heaviness, as if the night itself refused to rest. Sundar hurried through the street, his flashlight shaking in his hand. People were gathering near the corner, their voices loud, their faces pale. When he reached, he saw it, the giant old neem tree that had stood for years at the end of the road. It had been uprooted by the storm, its heavy branches crushing part of a small hut. Cries came from inside, desperate and sharp. "Someone is trapped," a man shouted. "We cannot move the tree." Sundar pushed forward, shining the light into the broken hut. Through the gaps of branches, he saw a woman pinned under the wood, her face barely visible. Beside her, a small child cried, reaching for her weakly. Without waiting, Sundar set the flashlight down and knelt by the tree. His hands gripped the wet bark as he tried to lift one of the branches. It was impossibly heavy, pressing into the ground with the weight of years. His muscles strained, his body trembling. The neighbors rushed to his side, pulling together, lifting, pushing, trying everything. The air filled with the sound of effort, and the woman's faint cries. "Push harder," Sundar urged, his voice breaking with determination. "Do not stop now." The branch shifted slightly, just enough for another man to pull the child free. The boy stumbled out, coughing and crying, and neighbors wrapped him in a blanket. But the woman was still pinned, her strength fading fast. Sundar's arms ached, but he refused to let go. His mind filled with flashes of his mother waiting at home, her words echoing, "You cannot fight every storm alone, but I know you will try." And he knew she was right. "Everyone together, one more time," Sundar said through gritted teeth. "For her." The group pushed again, the storm soaking them, the mud pulling at their feet. And finally, with a loud crack, the branch shifted far enough. Sundar and another man pulled the woman out quickly, laying her gently on the ground. Her chest rose faintly, weak but alive. Sundar pressed his ear close to her breathing, then nodded. "She is alive. She will make it." Relief spread through the crowd. Some cried, others whispered prayers. The child clung to his mother's hand, sobbing softly. Sundar placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder, saying gently, "Your mother is safe now. Stay strong." As the neighbors carried the injured woman to a safer house, Sundar stepped back, his body exhausted. His clothes clung to him, his arms heavy, his throat dry. Yet inside him, a strange strength remained, the strength that came not from power, but from purpose. When he finally returned home, the lamp still glowed faintly in the corner. Lakshmi sat quietly, waiting, her fragile frame wrapped in the shawl. Her eyes widened with relief when she saw him, though tears quickly followed. "Amma," Sundar whispered, kneeling before her. "The woman is safe. Her child is safe. The storm tried to break us, but we did not let it." Lakshmi cupped his face with both trembling hands. "My son, you are drenched and weary, but your heart still shines brighter than any light. Yet remember this, strength is not only in saving others, it is also in allowing yourself to rest." Her words pierced through him. He realized she was not only speaking of tonight, but of all the years he had carried burdens quietly. She saw the weight he never spoke of. Before he could reply, the house trembled slightly. Thunder rolled above, and then a sudden gust of wind slammed the windows open, blowing out the lamp. Darkness swallowed the room again. Lakshmi gasped, her hand clutching his tightly. But this time, Sundar did not rush for the matches. Instead, he held her hand firmly and whispered, "Amma, even in darkness, I see you, and that is enough light for me." The words calmed her, softening her breath. She leaned against him, her heart steadying in the quiet of his presence. Yet outside, the storm had not ended. The clouds still rumbled, and the night still carried whispers of trials yet to come. The last light. The storm had stretched far into the night, and the air carried both exhaustion and silence. Sundar sat beside his mother, his arms steady around her, while the faint sound of rain drummed softly on the roof. The blackout had turned hours into what felt like days, each moment heavy with trials. Lakshmi's eyes were half closed, her fragile body leaning against him. Sundar whispered, "Amma, you must rest. I will stay awake." But her hand gripped his arm, refusing to let go. Her voice was weak yet steady. "Sundar, tonight I have seen the truth. Storms will always come, outside and inside. But what matters is not the storm. What matters is who stands with us in the dark." Her words filled the room with a quiet strength. Sundar felt his throat tighten, his eyes burning with unshed tears. He wanted to be unshakable for her. Yet inside, he carried fear. The fear of losing her, the fear of a night where he might sit alone. As if sensing his thoughts, Lakshmi touched his face gently. "Do not hide your heart from me, my son. Even the strongest shoulders can bend. But remember this, you are never alone. The light you give others will always return to you, even when you cannot see it." Before Sundar could answer, another knock came at the door. Gentle this time, almost hesitant. He opened it to find several neighbors standing together, holding candles that flickered in the soft rain. "Sundar," one of them said quietly, "we thought perhaps we should not sit in darkness alone. Maybe we should gather here." Behind them, more neighbors appeared, carrying small lamps and blankets. Within minutes, the once quiet house filled with people, children whispering, women placing candles on the floor, men bringing food. The small living room glowed with dozens of tiny flames chasing away the darkness. Lakshmi's eyes widened as she looked around. The house that had felt fragile and dim now shone with warmth. She whispered, her voice breaking, "Sundar, this is not just light. This is love." Sundar looked at her, then at the neighbors who filled the room. They had all come together, united not by comfort, but by the storm itself. In their faces, Sundar saw resilience. In their voices, he heard hope. One of the children leaned close to Lakshmi and offered her a small candle. She smiled faintly, her trembling hands holding it as if it were a treasure. The glow lit her face, making her look both fragile and eternal. "Amma," Sundar said softly. "You were right. Storms do not win. Light always returns." The words hung in the air, heavy and true, and as if the sky itself had been waiting, the power suddenly returned. The fans whirred, the bulbs flickered, and the room was flooded with bright, steady light. For a moment, everyone froze, staring in disbelief. Then laughter and cheers filled the room. Children clapped, neighbors hugged, and relief washed over every face. Lakshmi leaned back, tears streaming down her cheeks. "The night has given us more than fear," she whispered. "It has given us strength, kindness, and the truth that no one is ever truly in the dark." Sundar held her hand tighter, his own eyes wet. "Amma, this night will stay with me forever. Not because of the storm, but because of the light we found in each other." As the neighbors slowly returned to their homes, leaving behind the warmth of their candles, the house grew quiet once more. Lakshmi rested peacefully, her face calm. Sundar sat beside her, no longer afraid of the darkness, for he had learned that the brightest light is not the one that comes from a bulb or a lamp. It is the one that shines from hearts that refuse to give up. And in that truth, the storm finally ended.